So I decided to put together a few decks that I think are really accessible for a new reader. Um, 4 tarot decks and 1 oracle deck, and it's really based on my own experience, having found over the years what it is I'm looking for in an easy reader deck, and what I wish I had found sooner when I first started learning how to read tarot. So, also, some of these are, a couple of them will probably be unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion. So, let's just get right into it. Okay, so this is the first deck that I have chosen for this. And this is the Super Lunaris Tarot. I'll link all of the decks below. But this is the first edition. I don't think they're currently printing the first edition anymore, but the second edition, I believe, is still available. And again, it'll be linked below. The only difference, there's a couple of replacement cards you can select if you aren't happy with the original ones. However, the backs on the second edition are different. So for me, I can't get the replacement cards because the backs will be different. But for you guys, if you're buying the second edition, just know that is an option. And I'll point out the cards that I know are have been offered as an alternative. And I think the only other difference between the first and second edition is I think they re-edited some of the photos, like the lighting and things. So, that being said, just know ahead of time I do not keep any of my decks in the box, even the decks I don't really use, just because I like them out and by my altar. So, I just did this so you guys can see the packaging. This is the guidebook, not the most beginner-friendly guidebook, but that's not what this deck is here for. It's functionable. I mean, in the sense that it has words that describe the cards. So if you're a guidebook person, this isn't going to cut it for you. But if you're not, like me, it doesn't really matter. I will say their community, that they're very active on Instagram. It's a very welcoming community, and it's very interactive. They respond to their comments and all that. So, I mean, if you ever had any questions, you could, by all means, find them on social media. First edition back, solid blue. And you have rose gold edges. And it's a standard, I don't really have a comparison card. I didn't bring the Rider Waite Smith deck here with me. But it's standard tarot size. So, let's get a little bit closer. So, as you can see, beautiful borderless images, well labeled, like you can read them easily. The reason I chose this deck as beginner friendly is it keeps the Rider Waite Smith imagery while being way more accessible, and not to mention diverse. And I feel like the issue people have with the Rider Waite Smith imagery is that it's very dated, and it's very flat. So you look at the card and you then Google the meanings, like all of us did, and you're not seeing it. Like, you don't see, it's like almost a stretch. But this deck does an incredible job of expanding that imagery and bringing a lot more motion into the depiction. For me, when I was a beginner, that's what my biggest struggle was. If I was using a deck where the imagery was not dynamic enough or too samey, then it made it a really big struggle. So I wish I found this deck sooner, but I'm so glad that I have it now. And we'll just go through some of the cards here. This card, it is like a deal. In this community, like this tarot witchy type of community, this is probably everyone's least favorite card. But look how beautifully they depict this. I mean, that's what I'm saying, when they really capture the aspects of a card better than Rider Waite Smith does, to be honest. So if you want to completely skip buying that deck, I would buy this deck. I mean, look at the attitude here. You can, like, in the Rider Waite Smith Four of Cups, there's not a lot of expression on the faces. So this really helps open up that other line of reading there. Like, is she being stubborn? Maybe she doesn't even need this fourth cup. Again, beautifully diverse. The art is, if you like collage decks, this is one of the more, it's very well done. It's not like someone just threw a bunch of images down on a card, which sometimes collage decks can kind of get that way, but... Okay, so this Empress card is one of the ones that, with the second edition, you can buy the replacement, or alternative card, I guess. And it's, I don't even know, you might even be able to just request it. I don't even know if it costs, I don't know how much it costs, to be honest, because again, I can't use it because I have the first edition and the decks are different. So, but the information's on their website. The alternative Empress is not pregnant. Well, at least not visibly pregnant, I guess. And, oh good, this is the other one that I know is an alternative now. Instead of being... Okay, when I first got this deck, I didn't associate this with the President of the United States. I mean, I guess it just went right over my head, but that's, you know, it's kind of the beauty of reading tarot and your own intuition. Like, everyone will see something different looking at the exact same card and the exact same, the exact same somewhat obvious symbols here. But in my head, this was a judge. In the alternative card, it is less obviously presidential. And I think they also changed this little picture right here in the background. There you go. Oops. So that's the other. I don't know if there's more. Those are the two that stick in my mind. Beautiful magician card. My favorite magician card, actually. So as you can see, if you've watched a lot of other flip throughs of decks, it's very, I don't want to say standard, but it's very traditional imagery. Look at this High Priestess. Let's just go ahead and do this. So, you know what, I'm not even going to take this away from being beginner friendly, but I was going to say I really like that it doesn't, the labels are minimal. Like, you can have the 7 and you don't need to write swords on a card that has 7 swords in it. Like, there's a difference between being a beginner and being, how should I phrase this nicely? It's just, you know, sometimes it's overkill. We know it's a swords card. This deck uses swords, cups, wands, and I want to say pentacles. So very consistently, all the cards have that symbol of the suit in the card. So it's an easy read for that as well. And not gonna make you go through the whole thing. Oh, my favorite 6 of Wands. I mean, she's fucking badass. Like, come on. And I'll show you if I can find the devil card, because that, I always look and see how they're depicting the devil. That's like a make or break card for me in a deck. Okay, I'm not going crazy. There we go. So this is the devil card. One of my tops, easily, without a doubt. And this is the first deck I'd recommend for a beginner. Well, the first in this video. I don't know that these are in any particular order. Actually, it's like kind of like top 5 decks, meaning go buy all 5. Number 2 is This Might Hurt. This one is in and out of print. Like, I waited a long time for this deck to come back into print. I believe it's available now. So if you like it, get it like ASAP, because I mean, for years, not years, maybe I'm exaggerating, but what felt like years, it wasn't in print. So this is the, I don't know what edition this is even. I want to say the 4th. It may be the 4th edition. So this is one of the decks that I think has a great guidebook for, well, anybody, but a beginner too. What I loved, I didn't get this deck as a beginner, but I love that for the minors, it kind of gives them like a title. Like, I'm leaving my cups behind me, Our Lady of Creativity, the Juggler, and the title kind of insinuates one of the meanings of the card. So it's a good guide. Well, let me show you one of the majors too. It's a great guidebook. Here we'll do we'll do the Tower. So if you're a guidebook person, you can pause, and I always pause the videos and read how the guidebook is written. There you go. Let's get to the actual deck. I love the artwork on this deck. I love that sort of kind of like it's like graphic art almost, like that very comic booky type of look. Well, one of the types of art style you might see in a comic book, I suppose. Again, beautifully diverse. Oh, let me show you guys the backs. This is the holographic black edging, which is obviously, I'm here for it. And these are the backs, reversible. If you're a beginner, I don't know if you're using reversals or not, but if you are, this is, the other deck was also reversible. This is if you didn't read it on the box and I didn't say it, which I probably didn't say it, this is the This Might Hurt tarot deck. The colors are, I mean, they're beautiful. I think that this artist draws her cards, and then I think she works with a colorist, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So again, subtle changes, but pretty traditional Rider Waite Smith imagery, modernized. I would say a more sort of everyday than the Super Lunaris tarot. You don't have like women, I was gonna say you don't have women waving swords around in the wind, and This Might Hurt, but I guess you do still kind of have. It's not, you know, it's still a little surreal. But it's, like I said, it's a little more every day. It's one of the more practical decks that I have. So if you're looking for a Rider Waite Smith deck that's not collage based, because some people hate collage, this was a great deck to consider. Nope. Okay. Obviously, I love this High Priestess. The colors are very consistent with the suit. So the swords are kind of like this grayish green color, I suppose, and the wands are, you know, warm reds and yellows and things like that. And the cups are blue-ish, and the pentacles are kind of earthy, like this greenish yellow tone. So if you're a very visual person who works with color a lot, this is a great deck for that. I love this Empress card. I'm not a fan of the pregnant Empress, because my favorite aspect of the Empress is her sensuality and her sexuality, and so I really like this card. Let's look at the Hierophant. Pretty traditional Hierophant. Not my favorite, but I do kind of like how they sort of look like they're asking or like seeking guidance as opposed to just bowing down. So that's really nice. You don't see that very often. I do kind of want to take a look at the Devil. I'm pretty sure it's a traditional Devil. Oh, on the way, let's stop here at Judgment and just appreciate the fact that the artist, Isabella Rotman, I believe, sorry if I'm not saying the last name correctly, actually got her mythology correct, because everyone loves to show Mott, I hope I'm saying that correctly too, loves to show her weighing a feather against a heart. It was actually Anubis who weighed your heart against a feather. The feather did come from Mott, but it's Anubis that weighs it. And so that's just a little pet peeve of mine. So, and this is only like I think one of two decks that actually uses that myth and does it correctly for me. Actually, that does it correctly, and for me, I appreciate that. And we were looking for the Devil. Justice. This is a very practical, accessible approach to justice. Like that. Again, the theme with what I chose for beginner-friendly decks was how easily relatable it is to real life and how emotionally accessible it is. Oh, here we go. Okay, not the typical devil depiction, but I actually love this card. I had really forgotten what it looked like when I was trying to picture it in my head, but this is great. I fucking love this card. All right. So, typical size of tarot. I mean, for me, I just would buy this deck for the edges, dude. Like, and this is gonna be my last. I like to call them Rider Waite Smith skins because you have. It's very close to Rider Waite Smith, but it puts like a whole nother art style or theme over it. So I've come to kind of call them that, skins or mods. I live with a gamer. Let me stop. I kind of am a gamer. Let me just accept it for what it is. I'll save the spoiler alert. This is the Oracle deck. We'll come to that. Okay. This is probably going to be an unpopular opinion for some people that I chose this as a beginner-friendly deck. But again, I chose my beginner-friendly decks based on their emotional accessibility and their everyday application. So yeah, the Urban Tarot. Robin Scott made this deck. This is a mass market deck. It's like, I think this is, it's definitely less than $25. The guidebook is great. It does what a lot of guidebooks fail to do, which is actually explain the choice of imagery in the card by the artist. So let's take this deck has some triggering images for some people, and it's generically the Urban Tarot, but there are some images that are very specific to New York City, which is one of my favorite things about the deck. But if you're not from New York City, the artwork is vague enough where you can easily just fill it in with like any major city. If you're like a city witch, or any sort of city dweller who doesn't have that immediate connection to like nature, and you're kind of out here like admiring the forest witches and the sea witches and the little kitchen witches. I feel like this deck was for us because, you know, we can't all go dance naked in the woods under the moonlight when behind us is just an alleyway. So moving right along. One of the sort of controversial, I guess you could say, images was the Three of Swords. I don't know if, when I flip through, I don't know if we're going to pass it or not, but this is her explanation for choosing that. So you can pause if you want to read through that. She does it for a reason. It depicts, basically, it touches on suicide. And my interpretation after reading the guidebook and going through the deck and using the deck, I don't think the artist did these things just for shock value, just for the sake of shocking you, but there's a purpose behind the emotion that she tries to invoke in the imagery. So I appreciate it. I like that this deck doesn't try to just like hug you, you know? Like sometimes you need to feel in order to read accurately, or at least read with more meaning. So I know that was a card that bothered a lot of people. This is just based on like the reviews that I had read. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. Possibly the Five of Cups. because the Five of Cups, it's not as graphic as the Three of Swords, which I decided I will show you because now you're probably picturing something that it's not. But it is very insinuating, something like that. So you kind of get the idea of a domestic dispute. I don't want to say, well, it is domestic violence. Anything that occurs in your house that's violent is domestic violence, but it doesn't, the card doesn't depict like person to person violence. So you can read that also, and I'll try to find those two cards for you guys, because I know not everyone is able to sort of swallow the same things as everybody else, and it could make or break your decision on buying the deck. For me, it made my decision, because I like decks that sort of are not afraid to punch you in the gut. All right, so this deck is not standard card size. It's much longer. And oh, backs are reversible. The only thing I don't like about this deck, is that it has the Urban Tarot written in the back of the card, and I hate text on the back of my cards. However, it's subtle enough. It doesn't affect the reversibility, if that's a thing for you. Personally, when I'm reading reversals, I pull my cards blindfolded if I'm not doing jumpers. Well, okay, not literally blindfolded, but blindly, like my eyes are closed. So it doesn't really matter to me whether or not the backs are reversible. But I know for some people that could be a deal breaker too, I suppose. Okay. And this deck is, I don't want to say that it's not Rider Waite Smith based, but it leans towards the Thoth system. It's still very beginner friendly, okay? Don't let that turn you off, because I don't even read the Thoth system, and I love using this deck. It does have keywords on the bottom of the minors. Does it have it on the majors? It's crazy when you think you know a deck, and then it doesn't have it on majors, it has the title. You think you know a deck, and let me actually see this card. And then you're trying to picture something and you have no clue. So, I'm not going to get into the Thoth system, but it is a slightly different system. However, if you're not ready for a Thoth deck because the imagery is not super accessible, for a new reader especially, then this is the deck for you, because the imagery is more Rider Waite-esque than the traditional Thoth deck. So it's a good transition. And if you're a beginner and you don't want to use the Thoth system at all, and you could use this deck as a Rider Waite deck, really. I mean, the only thing that might throw you off are the court cards, but I'll get into that when we get to one. So again, it's the Urban Tarot. This is such a New York thing that I love this moon card. The gators in the sewer system. Again, the keywords are Thoth based, so not necessarily what you'd first think of when you associate a Rider Waite Smith Four of Cups to any keyword. But it ties in, because here you have two people as opposed to the traditional one person, but not really willing to expand their horizons. You have the one glass that's like empty, they don't care. It's spilled everywhere, they don't care. They have three that are maybe not full but available, so who cares about cleaning up the mess, right? And the Thoth keyword down here at the bottom kind of just adds another layer of meaning to that traditional Rider Waite Smith interpretation. Oh, here we go. This is the Five of Cups. So obviously there was some sort of dispute. There we go. This is the Tower. I appreciate that in an Urban Tarot deck. I don't know why this deck specifically doesn't want to focus. But I appreciate that they didn't put the Twin Towers in the Tower card, because I mean, I'm pretty sure it's been done, but also there's other things you could say without having to use the Twin Towers. And if you read this, you know what? Let me just pull that one open. So if you're interested, you can pause here. If you're not interested, sorry, just fast forward like 10 seconds. But for me, this is like a big reason why I love the deck. Her explanation of why she chooses to depict certain things and where she chooses to depict them. So here we go. You can pause. And we'll keep moving it along. Okay, here, let's get to the core cards. The Thoth system, Cliff Notes version, it instead of your traditional page knight, queen, king, you have page prince, queen, knight. And the knights are, actually, you know what? I even want to say the knights are still fire, because even though they've changed position in the lineup, the element is still of fire. And Rider Waite Smith, I always associate my canes with air. So my canes have just become called princes, and they're a little lower down. It really, for me, it's seamless. It doesn't bother me in any way. And I actually, here, appreciate the elemental association that they use in this deck. The court cards are probably the #1 beginner friendly thing about this deck. And just hear me out on this. Your court cards, right, you read, are supposed to depict people or a personality type. But sometimes in a deck, you'll have the Queen of Cups just kind of sitting in front of the ocean. Anyone could sit in front of the ocean, okay? It doesn't have to be someone of a water sign or a Pisces, okay? You could take an Aries woman and put her in front of the ocean, and guess what? She's now the Queen of Cups. So it kind of is just, the symbolism doesn't help me bring the court cards to life. So what I like about this, what I love about this deck, is that you have a real world application. So the Queen of Swords is the painter. And actually, now that I'm saying that, I'm gonna find the Queen of Cups, because most people would want the Queen of Cups to be the painter, because they're stuck in that water is the most, is creativity thing. And which is true. I mean, obviously the Queen of Cups would probably paint, but where's my Queen of Cups? Again, I'm going to show you in the guidebook why she chose to depict the Queen of Swords as the painter instead. Here we go. And all of the core cards, by the way, are related to a trade or a career. So I think that's brilliant because a lot of people, you can tell a lot about someone's personality based on their chosen career or what they do every single day of their life. However, that's not to say that a lot of different personality types could join that career. So it really helps, it enforces a stereotype that's great for learning, but it also leaves enough space open to explore other possible interpretations. As opposed to, say, just putting like some fire in the hand of the page of wands. I mean, what is that? What is that even? Swords. Here we go. Oh, sorry. It's not page. It's princess. Here. Queen of Swords. Okay. So, very well explained, better than I could explain it to you. And then I'll show you guys the, this is the Three of Swords. Again, I should put a trigger warning here because it is triggering. A lot of this deck is triggering, not just if you've been through a traumatic experience, but I mean, if you live in a city, you're going to be triggered, but in a more positive way, I'd say, by a lot of the images here, because it's your life. Like, they're showing you things you see every day. And this is the Three of Swords. Very suggestive, not easy to look at. But again, it's a real world depiction of where actual suffering and hopelessness and desperation can put somebody, more so than like three swords going through a bird. You know what I'm saying? Also on the court cards you have, so the princess is earth, and it obviously cups water. So very consistently, it's explained how the two elements sort of interact with each other to create this sort of archetype. So when you have your princess cards, they're very hands-on sort of careers. Like Cups is the costume designer, and let me find another princess. Prince. And the Princess of Discs, which are coins, is the kindergarten teacher. Even have I mean, I know I use the term hands, but then you even hands-on, but then you even have like hands on the thing. So, and the Princess of Wands is a dancer. Like the earthiness of the princess kind of puts the characteristics of the suit element into manifestation. This is actually upside down. There we go. So here we have where she did choose to depict Actually, not the Twin Towers, but the new tower. This is from, if I'm remembering correctly, it's from Ellis Island, and it's a wall of where they list like the names of the people who came through. And in the background you can see what's new, right? And you can see, I think this is really cool, in the reflection too, past and, let's say, future. And I can do that for this one as well, because I know those are both triggering. I mean, they kind of hit you, especially if, like many of us who are in New York City, Ellis Island's not like just a tourist attraction, you know? So, a solid deck through and through. Not only the artistic imagery, but the artistic thought process is probably one of the top decks that where the artist like mastered both. I don't know when I close this. So that's the Urban Tarot. And I hope that in showing you the guidebook so you could stop and read it for yourself, it helps you decide if this is a deck that you want even more, or if it's really not something you're ready for, which is perfectly okay. But at least now you know enough to be able to decide. Last tarot deck is the Gift of Life. So this deck is another, it strays away from the traditional imagery again for the better, and probably would be an unpopular opinion if only for that reason. But again, reading tarot is not just about knowing the Rider Waite imagery, it's about connecting to your deck. If you're connected to your deck, you could become a beginner to a pro like overnight. It makes a world of difference. So guidebook is incredible. It does what I liked about the Urban Tarot guidebook, which is explain to you the image and why it was chosen. So this is a series of photographs that were taken by the artist and kind of compiled together to make this deck. This deck made me cry when I first went through it. No shame. Oops. It's large, okay? It's like, I think this might even be bigger than Oracle size. I believe it's 3x5. I think I measured it before. It's not the easiest to shuffle, but what saves it is that the cards are, I don't know if this is like semi-matte or semi-gloss or what, but they slide very easily. Sorry, I'm not a cardstock expert. They feel great, and they are bordered to look like Polaroid pictures, which I love. So I say that this deck is beginner friendly because, again, it really puts in that work for you of having to apply the card to real life. And that is honestly half the battle. And I would recommend it to all beginners because of images like this, where it challenges you to rethink who tarot applies to and who it's for. Sometimes the Tower really does mean something horrible is going to happen. And it doesn't just mean that it's time for you to get off social media and do something with your life. Like, not everyone who needs tarot is just sitting at home in their, like, neutrally staged house posting photos on Instagram. If that applies to you, I didn't... it wasn't as insulting as it sounds, I guess. One of my favorite High Priestess cards. This makes a lot of sense in the guidebook. So it really broadens your horizons and opens your eyes at sort of the bigger picture. It makes tarot for the whole world, right? Not just in your little witchy bubble, but on how to apply it to other cultures. My favorite Wheel of Fortune card ever. And I don't have any prospects that will ever compete with it either. Like, I mean, it's my favorite. I love that Emperor card. So yeah, not only for beginners, it will open your world of tarot meanings, even if you've been reading for 20 years. And this is probably my most diverse deck, racially diverse and ethnically diverse. And I am here for that. Love this Seven of Earth. I think this is my favorite Seven of Earth card, or Pentacles. I mean, I can't get enough of these cards. So, this is my last tarot deck in this top 5 list, but it is most certainly not least. Again, my top 5 really means just buy all 5. And this one's on Etsy. I don't know if she has another website, but I'll put the Etsy link. I think it's still available, but regardless, I'll link her shop down below. Last deck, Oracle deck. My first Oracle deck, my Ride or Die Oracle deck, my Do or Die Oracle deck. Like, I just can't. It's fairly basic. As far as Oracle decks go, once you've gotten 1 or 2, you'll start to notice how repetitive they can be. So if you're just going to get one, get this one. This deck makes me feel. It might just be a personal thing, because I always pull cards that have, like, are extremely relevant to what I'm going through at the time. So it's always there. Like, I go through this deck, I don't want to say a lot, but every time I'm going through it, I see a card like it's the first time I've ever seen it. The cards are beautiful. I love these cards. This is probably my favorite Oracle deck. And it's very simple, but it just is, it's great. The keywords are maybe your typical Oracle card keywords, but the guidebook does a really good job of I want to say guiding, but you know what I mean. It's a great guidebook. I'll show you one. And I know that the title is like literally right here, but again, or for the first time, this is the Sacred Destiny Oracle. And also, this is a mass market deck. So, like the Urban Tarot, you can put it in your Google engine, and it will show you all the many places you can buy it. I love that this deck is sort of a cross between photographs and collage. Oh, that one looks nice. And it just feels so nice. Oh, I like this one. You know what? I think this card has a nice little message. It's alphabetical, so that's nice. Easy to find things. So it describes the image. And then it also gives you the message. Even in the description, though, there's messages there. Sometimes I'll pull a card and like that's where I'm getting the message from, is just in the image description. This is a deck I consistently refer to the guidebook for. Not because I can't read without it. It's just the guidebook always has such a nice message that I want to read what it says. So, great for regardless of whether or not you want to use your Oracle cards to open a reading or to close a reading. They have, it's a very well-rounded deck. Definitely, obviously, but 100% recommend this one. And that is it. Those are my 5 go get these decks if you're just starting to read cards. Sacred Destiny Oracle. For that real world application, we have the Gift of Life Tarot and the Urban Tarot. This Might Hurt and Super Lunaris for your modernized and accessible Rider Waite Smith imagery. So I hope this helps you make a decision, or at least put you on the right path to help you find the right deck for you. Again, I recommend all of them. This was really not in any particular order. I think you should get them all.